I am happy to introduce Joshua Alejandres from the last short that I screened last week, Mama Sabe. I know all of you guys loved it and we had an amazing discussion about it. So he'll be talking about his experience in college, why he studied film, and anything that he has to say about his short. And we also have Luna Cristales, that it was also a classmate of mine at San Francisco State. She is finalizing her major this last semester. And I invited her. We'll see a clip of hers, her film reel, and she'll also be talking about her experience in college, her creative process. And I want to invite these two guests to share their experience as young filmmakers that have the limited tools, limited resources, but still know how to communicate their stories. Let's start with Joshua. Tell us a little bit about you, what your experience as a film student was. You graduated last semester. Tell us about your story and everything.
Yeah, of course. Hi. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Joshua. I'm actually from LA. I grew up in LA, and I moved here to San Francisco to study cinema. I just, what Deanna just said, I just graduated from SF State, and it's really cool. I've been making films ever since since 10th grade. So it's been really exciting and seeing like the whole process every year in every project. It's just really cool and like great. And then what else? Sorry, what was the other question?
So your college experience at San Francisco State, why did you were making films where you were young, but what made you decide to study film movies in San Francisco State?
Well, one of the reasons why I wanted to study at SF State was because I wanted to get away from my parents. That was one reason. But the second reason is just because it's just with film. I've been growing up with movies my entire life. I've been seeing movies, and it's just film has always been something part of my heart that I just want to keep exploring, and I also want to share that love to others. And that's what I hope to do with my films, just inspire people like by the film I made. It might not be good or bad.
Luna, what about you? Tell us a little bit about you. Why did you decided to study film at San Francisco State and everything?
Okay. So I'm actually from San Francisco, and my mom immigrated to San Francisco from El Salvador. So my whole family's from here, but we ended up moving to Tahoe when I was just probably 3 years old. So I grew up there. But I think because my mom, for her knowing that we weren't going to grow up in a city, she always had us watch a lot of foreign movies and different movies that probably a lot of other kids my age weren't having to watch. But for me, I don't know, I guess it kind of started there, but I never really thought myself making movies. I was artistic as a kid because my mom was a graffiti artist, so I was always drawing and stuff, but I never was well, what am I going to do with a drawing, And then in high school, I took AP studio art and I did a whole portfolio on film stills. And then I was oh, this is something I like. But even then, I didn't think I was going to do film. And I took a class in high school that was basically a mini film production class, and I had a horrible experience in it. It was super sexist, and I did not have any fun, and I was okay, I'm definitely not doing this, I guess. So I went to community college, actually, and then I did political science, and I went to UC Santa Cruz, and then I got to UC Santa Cruz my first quarter, and I actually, hated it, because I was I don't know, I was why am I doing political science now? And I was I don't really see myself working in an office yet and stuff like that. And I was still watching movies all the time. And I knew I wanted to make movies. And I loved the beauty and fashion industry. So I was I'm just going to go to SS State and do film. And that's what I did. And I'm really happy with the decision. And I've had a good time. And I've learned a lot. And I've had really good professors. But yeah, it definitely wasn't a straight path. I kind of I feel I was really scared to do it, especially because I grew up really poor. So I was that seemed really impractical. And I just wasn't sure if it would make the most sense, but I started to learn about more filmmakers that actually have done it and didn't really come from having anything, that it seemed all the more possible. But yeah.
Thank you. And well, and how does your background connect to the creative process of the films that you guys make, or the work in progress that you guys are working on at the moment? Joshua, you want to start?
Yeah. Ooh. I mean, it's really tough. I guess being like going into an industry, being a Latino in an industry that's really like I guess prominent by like white people, and it's just every like it was really tough on my first day on film school at state, because as soon as I walked in to that class, I just felt like I didn't belong for some reason. It just felt for me like I'm just like out of my element, even though I've been like doing films like in high school, you know. I just feels like I'm out of my element the entire time. But I with that, I feel like it gives me an advantage to progress myself even more, like do better with my films, you know, to have that extra courage to be like, you know what, even if I'm out of my element, I'm still going to do what I want to do, you know. And that's how I guess with my background it makes my work.
Great. How about you, Luna?
Well, I feel like up until now, I've probably been making things that are more related to like my interests and like my background, because I kind of mentioned this before, but I'm really into like beauty and like fashion. But again, I grew up like poor. Like I literally like probably had like 4 shirts and a pair of pants. It was like a middle schooler, which was seemed awful at the time, especially. But then like I started to work and get money, and I feel like that became my hobby, because I was like, oh, I want to work in like beauty and fashion. But now I'm at a place and I'm working on like a screenplay now for a class where like I actually like to write about my experiences like during those times, especially because it's like the stories and the movies that I like most are like really personal. So for me, it's like, oh, well, it's like I'm Latina, so I can actually like make that image of myself that I feel I haven't seen, and only I can do that because only I have that story. And I know that like to some extent, like other people will connect to it, especially because I feel like, especially for like people of color and like the media, you obviously get targeted into one specific type of thing. You know what I mean? And there's certain shows where I'm like, oh yeah, like that's really nice. But at the same time, there's so many different ways that I feel like, especially like the Latino community, ours, like, and like, I don't know. It's weird because I was like a little emo kid. Like I liked like more like pop punk and like stuff like that. And it's like I still don't see that image of like those kind of people that I knew that also looked like me. And I'm like, I know it exists, so like might as well make it. Like, I don't know. Especially like coming of age movies, they're always living in like really big houses. I'm like, I didn't live in a big house. I lived in a 1 bedroom. So I'm like, why can't I just like make that instead? So yeah, that's how I try to. I'm trying. That's the path I'm trying to go down.
And did you guys came in to study film thinking of these really complex ideas of representation and how you wanted to portray your story? Or was it something that you find out in the way of interacting with professors, knowing film history, kind of discovering new things? Did that happen to you once you were just involved and dive into this experience?
Yeah, Luna, do you want to go?
Okay.
All right.
I don't know. I feel like I guess I always felt it. I mean, I think it was probably because I did political science too, so I already felt like a bit like having those ideas in there, but also knowing, because like in the town in Tahoe I grew up in, it was really racially divided, and I knew that as a kid that I was treated different. And like I was also an avid actually, but yeah, so I always felt like, I don't know, like I was aware of the issues like very much, and then I started taking like ethnic studies classes in college, and that I think only made me like feel more like political. And I took like a Chicano film class too that I really liked. So it was like a combination of like personal experience with like learning how to like verbalize that in college through like ethnic studies classes. And then also a lot of people don't like film theory. I like it a lot personally because I feel like that informs things in a deeper level even. So
Definitely.
I don't know. It was probably like that too. And then just trying to learn as much as I could by myself, like knowing like with my phone basically. But yeah. So you kind of come to it eventually.
Yeah. How about you, Joshua?
Well, when I first started getting into filmmaking, I didn't really have those ideas or thoughts of thinking of having representation. Right? It just never occurred to me. But then once I got to college, I started realizing how important it is to have representation, because if, yeah, sure, like there might be a show that does show representation, but it can also be a representation, because what if they're not giving the exact facts, or like quite like they just, yeah, misrepresent something. And just going through college and like taking classes like Latinx and like learning about ethnic studies, it just really opened a whole new world to me. And I feel it's giving me tools that can probably like will enhance like my films, I guess, because it would just like, because I would like the way I would write films was just basically I would kind of like, I guess, write it about me in a sense, but also want to relate to other people as well. And I think by having that mentality, saying like, you know what, like this story is not only about me, but it can represent other people too, and I think that's very powerful. And I think films have that much power to do that. So I think it's important to have representation now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's what I learned in college.
Thank you. So Joshua, we watched your short Mama Sabe. I'm sure all of the students remember it. But now let's watch a short clip of Luna's film reel, and they call film reel just a compilation um, of excerpts of the films that you've made. So she made this incredible film reel um, of her characters, of her patterns, of her colors. So let's take a look at it so we can also discuss her work.
Cool.
So that was Luna's film reel. I guess I'll just open it up for the students if they want to ask any questions to Luna and Joshua about anything that they're curious about. Luna shared her website there if you guys want to explore more of her work, illustrations, and photography and film. So you guys have any questions? Go ahead.
So kind of like what happened, like when we saw the other films that we saw last week, when you watch it, what do you like, what are the first couple words that you think about? Like, how did it impact you? What do you know what I mean? Like, right or wrong. Like, I feel like in some ways, like art is like, you can't be really right or wrong, right? It's just the way you interpret things. And so what do you guys feel? Frida, I feel like your mind is like, it's going. Do you want to share a little bit of what your first thoughts are?
Well, I mean, usually when I see films, I think about the story, but if it's like something like a small reel, I think about the little moments that happen in the, I don't know how to explain it, but I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, I'm like trying to think.
Okay, that's fine. How about Chantel? What do you think, Chantel?
I was paying attention to the different, like the small details, because I'm used to looking at the details when I'm reading or when I'm writing, and I think that's also important with films. So I was paying attention to like the colors and what everything really represents and how it makes a whole, even though they're different stories.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Eddie, do you have any thoughts?
Well, like I pay attention to like if there's like dialogue, I like pay attention. Like the special effects that are like created to like emphasize like the film, like goal. Like that's interesting. Like if you like look at it and like look like deep into the thought of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Diana, Luna, can you explain a little bit more? I just, we've kind of talked about it in the workshops before when you showed little clips is like, when you get a little bit more information about what the filmmaker was trying to send, like the message they were trying to come across, like it makes you go like, oh, I get it now. Like, oh, I see that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it makes me want to watch the film again because it makes me want to see what the filmmaker was trying to portray or trying to say. I don't know.
Yeah, so with this, it's a reel. So what that means is basically, and this happens in most film schools, the idea is that like for those years you're making your projects and then you put it into a reel, which is just to show an example of what you do. So
Okay.
for me, I do directing and like production design. So all those are just little clips from like longer films that I've made. So it's just like a visual example, I guess, of what I do.
See.
Whereas like on my website, you can see like the full versions of what those individual projects were.
Oh.
So it's like more of like, oh, like this is my style. Like, let's say I'm trying to apply to like a creative agency or something. I'm like, this is what I can do. And then they would just see that like quick sample of work and be like, oh, okay, yes or no. You know what I mean? So with that, I just try to make it like match the tone of like what I want most or like overall and with the music and stuff. But like the work itself doesn't really have meaning. It's just show like, oh, this is what like I've done.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Luna, what I like about your film reel, it's how you and your work, how I know you from our class is, how you create this imaginary dreamlike worlds with female characters, and it feels like as how girls imagine when they're kids, like this landscape of it, but still very grounded in their autonomy and their independence. So do you want to talk about how you show that in your film reel with all the characters and the colors?
Sure, yeah. Well, it's probably all based because like I grew up with a single mom and I'm a twin and we also had a little sister, so I've only ever grown up with like women in the house, and like my mom was married briefly, but like they got divorced, so it's kind of just always been like just girls like in the first place. So I feel like naturally I just like gravitated towards that in the first place and felt like if I'm like a woman who's like, or someone who identifies as a woman and is making like a film, then I'd want to see myself in it. And I know like because of how I grew up, like female characters best and how they've been like misconstrued and stuff too at the same time. Because I remember I was watching this video where they're like, oh, there's no wrong way to write a woman, when it's like, well, there probably is. I just assume, and we've probably seen so many examples of it. So like, I don't know, for me it's like I don't think that, especially as like younger, there's this whole idea of like, oh, if you like feminine things then that means you're like lame or like weak, you gotta be like one of the boys. So I try to like not like fall into that. I just like what I like, and like the characters like do the same thing, but they can be, I can go either in that very like that direction or very like dreamy or like gritty sometimes too, because again, I didn't grow up with like a nice bedroom and like the world of like Sofia Coppola movies, if you guys have seen like her stuff. I didn't grow up like that either, even though that was something like I would have aspired to have. So yeah, that's just kind of like I think how it works out in the end. I think it's important that because women are so, and like non-binary and basically like identified like in making film or seen and behind making film, then you kind of have to take it upon yourself to like be part of that, and also like why not represent yourself at the same time. Yeah.
Thanks, Luna.
Mhm.
Joshua, how about you? What about Mama Sabe? How did you make these films with the tools that you had, the shots of San Francisco? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, basically the movie's about, it's an experimental short, and it's just a mother trying to get in contact with her only son Felipe, and who moves to San Francisco and is misguided by the vices of the city. And let me tell you about this this movie. It took so long to make, and it was very difficult for me to make as well, because during my time at San Francisco State, I wasn't taking any production classes, so I was unable to get any equipment, any cameras or anything. And it was just very a stressful time, because I had this idea, this story that I really wanted to tell, and it was just really frustrating because I didn't have the tools to do it, even though I was in school. But thankfully, one of my professors, who's now my mentor, he believed in me and liked the idea, and through through a secret like thing that we did, he rented the camera for me, and he trusted me to like use the camera, so which is cool, you know. And through that, and also just like living in San Francisco for almost 5 years, I feel like I've grown up. I feel like I'm a native now, I guess. I don't think that's like the proper way, but I feel like I've seen the city in a way that it's just, there's so much beauty in it, but as well there's so much sadness, because you see poverty, homeless. There's a big homeless problem here, and also a drug issue as well, a drug addiction. And I feel like there's not a lot of light shine into that when people think of San Francisco. They just think of the city of the Golden Gate Bridge and something beautiful, when in reality, like, it's also like a city that's also bad, you know. And I just wanted to capture all that in the film, and hopefully I captured it.
And that is your mom in the voicemails, right?
Oh,
That is
yeah.
the voice of your mom.
Yes, yes. I approached my mom because I think like no one else is a better actress than my mom. But no, it's just my mom. Like, I approached the idea to my mom, and when I first told her, she literally looked at me and was like, "Is this story about you?" or something. And it's funny because it's just like, it wasn't about me when I was writing it. It was more of just like who it could have been, like when it comes to like living in a Latino household. You know, it can be anyone. You know, Felipe. I felt like the character Felipe could be like someone's cousin. You know, or like a family member that doesn't know but is suffering from drug addiction. But
Joshua and Luna, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Joshua and Luna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.